Okay, a few points about positioning all your stuff in the form. Margins. So you have to maintain a consistent margins so that some label or button or text does not like be at the extreme left or top or bottom. So you have to have at least some white space or meaning like blank space from the start of the object or control and to like the borders of your application or your form. Um, Controls which are uh, similar like text boxes or buttons or anything, any type of control, they should be placed close to each other, should be kind of grouped, which makes sense. And we need to minimize the number of different margins by aligning the different control borders so that like the thing looks symmetrical and nice. You don't want a label here starting from here and then another over there. Sometimes it is required, but most of the times if they have a consistent margin, the whole overall thing looks much better. Um, and this is easy if you paid attention to last class. You saw that when I tried to move the objects around, there were snap lines once I got close to some margin, and that really helps with aligning the different stuff together. And the interface should be such that it's what the user expects. It's not too flashy. It does not distract the user from carrying out their job or doing whatever they have to. And here basically the talk about including graphics in the user interface. Graphics should be used with a purpose. Basically, you don't overdo stuff with adding a lot of pictures to your application or your form, because we generally tend to look at the picture before the text. So if whatever picture is there is for a static purpose or is used there to illustrate something, so that's fine, or used to clarify a portion of whatever portion of the screen is doing, that's fine. But you don't want to put like a flower here or a flashy sign there, which generally does not have any purpose. Um, Same thing for the fonts, different fonts in the user interface. Do not overdo it. Make it simple. Make it mm, try to keep the fonts the same overall. That's a good way of doing stuff. Um, and some guidelines would be that Windows generally recommends this form SEGO UI, SEGO UI. But I mean, it's still up to you, whatever font you want to use. Try to keep only one font type for all your text. Italics and underlining are generally avoided unless there's some sort of requirement of using it, but they're generally not used when we want to pay it when we want someone to pay attention to some text or something. We generally use bold to for like generally titles or headings or key items in your application. But then again, we have to like limit what we bold. If we bold everything, then we are not letting the user pay attention to anything, if you know what I mean. So those are some guidelines. And uh, a trick or a tip would be that when you're about to start designing your user interface, specify your font style or type before adding controls to your form or your application. That way, whatever select font you selected, it stays, and you don't have to like go back and redo it. And I guess the same tip for color. Um, do not put flashy colors, different types of color here and there unless it's absolutely needed. So generally, black and white is mostly used for all sorts of applications, unless and until you want to highlight something, or you want to have some sort of interface where you click something and the color changes or something like that. And so basically use colors sparingly, and keep in mind that, I mean, there are people out there who are little bit or like severely colorblind, so maybe they cannot distinguish between a few colors, or they just don't see color at all. So I mean, if you're using colors to, like, suppose build an or design, I'm sorry, illustrate an alarm, so that you do something and there's a green button if everything's okay, and there's a red, not a button, like a red picture if you do something wrong or something bad is happening. So for most people like us, or maybe not you, depending on your situation. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that the alarm with green and red buttons should be fine for most of us. But those who cannot distinguish colors, then they might not have any idea that something bad is happening. So, and also keep in mind certain colors, um, like they have different meanings to different people. You might have you might have used a color like, suppose, royal blue, which is like your favorite color, but I mean, it might be not be the favorite color for someone who's using it. And so what you choose as your color should be appropriate for everyone. Um, and your contrast is something very important. So if your background is white or light, you generally use black or dark text, and if it's the other way around, that your background is dark, then you use white or light text. And generally limit yourself to a very few colors, like a maximum of 3 different colors is what's generally recommended. And um, do not use color as your only means of identification. So you have to cater your application to people who are color I'm sorry, colorblind.